was a YSA activity with potential suitors.
Well, that's what got you to the top of the stairs.
Bro.
Reach out to someone. And if it's like scary, if you don't want to reach out to your spouse or your bishop or something, reach out to like someone distant from like Katie and I.
How long does he need to be sober for me to consider getting engaged? That's not a realistic expectation to have, in my opinion, because the soberness doesn't necessarily matter. It's more about his outward actions of like, is he being honest with you? Is he being honest with the bishop?
Hi guys, welcome to the Third Hour podcast where we talk about church culture and real topics within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints like pornography addiction, which we'll be talking about today. My name is Mimi Bascom and I am joined by my co-host and husband, Eric.
Hey guys.
Eric, how are you doing today?
I'm good.
Good. We have a great episode for you today. We actually already filmed with a remote guest. We talked to Matt and Katie from Upward, Inward, Outward. They have an Instagram page. It's awesome. It's all about pornography addiction and betrayal trauma. I won't go into it too much because you'll see it in just a second, but
it's really cool just seeing from them. This is a topic that most people are really trying to hide, they're trying to conceal if they have a problem or if they previously had a problem, they don't want to be open about it. They want to talk about it. And so it's really cool for them being so open and sharing their experience for people to realize like, oh, I'm not the only person going through this. Because with, any kind of addiction, that's a lot of the things you hear. People are always isolated and, withdrawn from everyone else and hiding, and it makes it much harder to overcome. So it's really cool what they've done to be able to, use this platform to share their experience to then help other people too.
Absolutely. And this conversation we just had with them is for everyone, whether you're struggling, someone struggling, or you don't know someone, because you will probably encounter someone yourself or someone else who's struggling with pornography addiction at some point. It's here, it's prevalent. So we hope you'll stay tuned for that. We will also have timestamps for you to jump to different parts of the episode, but hope you won't skip this part because we have a new segment today.
Please don't skip it.
Please don't skip ahead. We won't know if you do. So actually.
Yeah, no, actually, that's the thing. Feel free to skip, guys. That's the beauty of today's day and age. Consume the content you want. Skip ahead. Hit the highlights.
The way that you skip any kind of ad read on a YouTube video that you watch.
Absolutely. Everybody does that. It's great.
That is so rude. I think
you just hit that double tap with my thumb to skip ahead on YouTube.
Oh my gosh, don't literally give them instructions on how to skip ahead.
Yeah, help them out. Guys, if you go right below the description of the video, that's where you see the timestamp, so you can see topics that look interesting. Just boom, right?
No, yeah, that's totally
jump right in there.
We don't blame you. But we have a general authority fun fact.
Oh,
this is our new segment. I feel like our general authorities have lived such amazing lives, and
honestly, every time you hear about a bio, you're like, he did that, and then that, and then like the list just keeps going. And I'm like, dude, like, calm down.
Or
like the rest of us look bad.
Literally. You're right. So we're starting with who better to start than our own prophet, President Nelson.
Okay.
I feel like you might know this fun fact, but you might not know the backstory behind it. President Nelson is fluent in Mandarin.
Right. Okay.
But here's how it came to be. So this is a quote from LDS Daily, has an article about this, but he says, they said, sorry.
Somebody said something at some point.
While serving as the general president of the Sunday school, President Nelson attended a meeting where then President Spencer W. Kimball urged those in the meeting to learn Chinese. President Nelson excitedly accepted the challenge and became fluent in Mandarin. He still practices and uses his ability to speak Chinese in a variety of different settings.
That's intense. I guess that goes to show why he's the prophet, because it's that kind of dedication. But like, if someone in my meeting was like, you should learn Chinese, I'd be like, okay, let me learn how to say hello and goodbye. And like, that'd be the extent of it. Now, like, I should definitely get fluent.
No, we would just be like Duolingoing it for sure.
True.
I knew he spoke Chinese, but I thought that it was something that he picked up like for his professional development. I didn't realize it was a challenge from President Kimball. First of all, kind of a crazy challenge to put. That's a big ask. That's a big ask, but we've seen it. I think it was actually beneficial in his career and as the prophet. So thought that was interesting.
Dang, there you go. All right. So next up, guys, we're going to be reacting to some funny posts that we found on social media. So
They might not be funny.
oh, okay. Well, Mimi found them, so I actually don't know what they are. They could be traumatic videos she found on social media.
Not that.
But I'm guessing they're gonna be funny, and we're gonna react to them. We'll pull them up here so you can see little snippets with us too. But there you go.
If you are just listening, we will try to describe them to you. So this one says, me on my way to ask my friend if today is Sunday school or Relief Society because I never remember.
Yeah. I never remember.
I was going to say, that's you. You're that Tin Man.
I actually feel like I am starting to get the hang of it now. It's been, what, 3 years since it changed? No, 5 years?
I don't even remember.
Because it's before COVID.
Yeah.
So before 2020. So it's like, yeah, it's been several years.
Yeah.
And I feel like I now have it down because first and third are Elders Quorum and second and fourth are Sunday school.
Mm-hmm. I just go off of what we went to the week before.
I gotta look at the calendar.
And then sometimes fifth Sunday throws us off, you know. I feel like now that I'm in Young Women's.
Dang it, I was backwards. I knew I was backwards as I said it. It's first and third Sunday school, second and fourth Elders Quorum Relief Society.
Yikes. No, I think it's helpful now that I'm in Young Women. I think it helps just because.
How's that any different?
I don't know.
Instead of going to Relief Society, you go to Young Women's. That's the exact same.
It just helps.
Okay, it helps.
Well, sometimes I have, like, if I'm teaching the lesson, then I'm like, okay, you know.
Okay, yeah, then you know ahead of time
See?
you're preparing something. That makes sense, but that's not because it's Young Women. Alrighty, what do we have next here?
Okay, this is a really good one. This is gonna blow
We'll be
your
the judge
mind.
of that.
Oh no, you're not gonna be impressed now that I'm hyping it up. It says, why did nobody tell me about this?
What? You can just, I mean, to be fair, that's not super mind-blowing to me because you know, like when you fold up a chair, some people like literally grab it and everything, but you can just put your foot on the lower rung and then just pull up, and it's just like one smooth motion to flatten the whole chair.
Yeah, unless you're me, and I never remember if I push forward, if I pull back, like I'm there for 30 seconds trying to open the chair.
Wow. Yeah, so
oh my gosh,
I find
not
it
just
very
me.
easy. I mean, so I was gonna say is when you collapse the chair, it's just that like smooth motion where you lift, you hold the backrest, you pull up on that while your foot's on the back bottom bar, and you just pull up and it flattens the chair.
But like sometimes you get stuck and you're like, oh, it must be the other way.
So when you go to put the chair down, I mean, I feel like I just gently bump the bottom and it just goes down so easy. Like you just give it a tap on the way. It's kind of the reverse of the same thing. So I feel like that's not even easier to. Then you have to lay them all around the edge first before you.
Okay, that's the thing.
Because they're not just going to be sitting there.
Around. But
so it looks cool, and it's pretty sweet.
It looks cool, and if it's just you and you're like pulling up your chair for a meeting, and you're like, bam.
That's true. If you want to make a dramatic entrance to the ward Christmas party, and you have to set your own chair up, which doesn't happen.
Okay, this one I don't relate to personally because I didn't serve a mission, but just seeing it, I'm like, okay, I can understand.
It just seems right, even though you have no idea.
It seems right.
Okay.
You tell me. It says, me and my mission companion reaching our teaching goal with homeless Joe 5 minutes before the deadline.
Yeah. I'm sure that happens, people. I guess my mission wasn't like super strict on numbers and stuff, so to like, but I get it, like, cause like you had that where you're like, today we're gonna do this, we're gonna have this miracle, or whatever, and you're like right at the end of the day, and there's like no time left, and then something pops up, and that feels amazing. So again, not 100% for me, where it's like you have a teaching goal that you're.
Yeah.
I mean, you're supposed to care a lot about, setting these goals and doing everything you can to reach them, but we just weren't big on numbers in my mission, so it wasn't exactly that as much as just trying to. Sometimes you just like had a rough day and you want to like finish it out with something good, and then it happened. It just felt so good.
Totally. Thank you, homeless Joe, the real MVP. Sorry, is that insensitive?
Temporarily dishomed Joe.
Mm-hmm. You are a son of God.
But actually, that's kind of the irony of the whole thing is it's like, it's literally this random homeless dude you're never going to see again. So it's not even a serious lesson, but they're just doing it for their numbers.
Literally. Okay, last one we'll do today. This is dumb ways to die at BYU.
I mean, is this like literal dying, or they just mean like ruining your college career?
You tell me.
Okay, we'll find out.
The RB stairs. That
okay.
is literal dying.
The weirdest thing about that is I feel like by the end of the semester, like it's not even that bad.
Yeah, I didn't get to that point.
Oh, yeah. For me, it's like, the first week, like you come back from the summer and you hit the RB stairs and you're brutal. But by the end of the semester, you're in good shape and you're like, okay, I could do that again.
See, yeah,
like we did like a award activity, like a FHE group activity where like you had to do a relay race up and down the RB stairs. And like that was just a thing.
Activity?
And like, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
But like
not.
everybody was fine.
At it was a YSA activity?
Yeah.
With potential suitors?
Well, that's what got you to the top of the stairs.
Bro, that would be the only way I'd be going up those stairs voluntarily.
Mimi be flying up the stairs. You'd be like, I've never seen that girl move so quick. You'd be like, look at those boys. Let's go.
Boy. Singular.
I meant before we met, of course.
No, there's literally nothing funnier than hearing... Oh, sorry. Maybe that's a little mean. It brings me joy. I think it's funny when our little young women are coming back from FSY, and they went to FSY at BYU.
Oh, and they had to do the RB stairs.
I don't know about the stairs, but they're like, there was so much walking. It was so hard. I'm like, girl,
I forgot.
just wait till
they did say that. They're like, I did so many miles going between the classes. I'm like, that's just being a student there, dude. Like you've got a class in the RB and then you got to get up to the JFSB afterwards. You got to be hustling and then you got to get down to the crab tree in the other corner. Like you're just ping ponging around campus.
It's true. Okay, next one. Making eye contact with campus missionaries. I didn't even know that was a thing. Did you know about campus missionaries at BYU?
Not necessarily, but what I do know is do you ever run into people that were taking mission prep? Because like when I was in mission prep, he would challenge us, say, okay, go teach someone about the restoration for 5 minutes. And so you'd literally leave the classroom and you'd have to go out on the sidewalk on campus and just go find some random person. So like if I saw this like horde of kids like leaving like in the middle of a class time that I happen to be out there, I'd be like, oh, let me not be there.
You didn't want to sit in their lesson?
Well, it's the same thing as the campus missionaries. We're like, I get it. It's nice, but like I got places to be, I don't.
That's true. Okay.
I mean, it would be uplifting and positive, which is great. But also, I'm just trying to get to Chick-fil-A and get some food.
Driving on game day.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you got stuck over there by the Marriott Center or by the Lavelle Edwards Stadium, like, man, I forget. There was one time where, like, for some reason we weren't at a football game, but, like, we ended up driving past there, and it was the worst. Mm-hmm. Up there on, like, North Temple, like, on the back side. Like,
North Temple?
Yeah. Isn't that what the road is? Like, right?
I think that's in Salt Lake.
Well, yeah. Like if we were like on that road up by the temple on like the north side, they're coming across behind the stadium and just got like stuck with cars in that neighborhood.
You should have got out and did a session and went back to your car.
It might have been faster.
Yeah.
But it was too late at night, so it's probably closed.
Having a dress and grooming violation at the testing center. I am very fortunate this never happened to me. Has that ever happened to you? Did you ever forget to shave?
It happened to my friends, and I have no sympathy.
And like after waiting in a long line,
I wrote an English paper about having no sympathy for this situation, actually.
You're actually kidding.
No, I did, because here's my thing. I get people have issues with the honor code about dress and grooming or whatever, and that's fine. But those rules don't just suddenly pop up when you get to the testing center, you know, like and you're like, these people, they're hoping to get through, and they're like, they just won't check, like, or the other one's big intramural games, like they know you check there, but we'd have guys show up to our intramural soccer games and just hope they'd get through without getting, hit for it, and they're like, oh no, you gotta shave, bro, and then they'd have to like, one dude has an electric razor and just like passes it around, and they're all like, it's kind of gross, but gotta do it for the team. I'm like, you knew. All right, everyone who comes to BYU, they have to sign, they agree to this. If you have problems with it, cool, protest, like send in some letters, cool. But if you're going to the testing center, they're gonna check you. You just don't bank on getting one guy that feels bad for you and it's willing to lose his job over letting you in, because like, think about it. If their supervisor walked in, they'd be like, whoa, how'd you get in here? They go up front and talk to him. So like, it's not that guy's fault, because he's got to watch out for his job.
It's interesting. This all just reminds me of the time we were temple workers, and you do have to be clean shaven to be a temple worker. And one time you came in with a beard.
But that is a little different, because
how is that different?
I would only shave to go to our temple shift. So it's like throughout the week I didn't have to be, and then suddenly for the temple I'd have to.
It could be finals week.
But at BYU you have to all the time.
Not during finals week when there's no class.
No, you have to all the time.
What?
Yeah.
They can come pop in
semester.
Your apartment. Hey.
It's not about them finding you. It's about you adhering to the standards the whole time. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, I see.
It's not like, oh, I have this thing, I better go,
Right.
because there's several people I knew that did that too, that they were like, oh, I have this class on Thursdays and they care, but my other classes, they're not going to call me
Right.
out, so then I only have to shave on Thursdays.
Yeah.
Like, just live the rules all the time. If you are that bothered by the rules, A, don't go there. Go somewhere else that doesn't have those rules. Or B, suck it up and worry about, your petitions or whatever outside of that. I mean, it's fine if you disagree with the rules.
Right.
I get it. Like, it is silly to not be able to have a beard at BYU. Like, there's a lot of precedents in the church of very large beards, So I get that aspect of it. I'm not saying the rule should be there for sure. I'm saying the rule is there, so follow it.
Period. Didn't know you were so passionate about this topic.
I just had too many people, like roommates or friends, just like whining about it.
Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't take my test today because I didn't shave.
Yeah.
And like,
No,
just do
totally.
it.
No, I get it. Letting a Provo girl hear you say that you don't like Taylor Swift.
Ooh, that is dangerous.
Literally deadly. Not literally. People call me out all the time.
Deadly.
They're like, literally?
There have been 3 homicides on BYU campus for saying you don't like Taylor Swift.
No, it's one of my favorite things about Utah actually is how often you just hear Taylor Swift on the radio. Like, not just the hits, but like, from all the albums, all the songs. It's great. Swifties unite. Oops. Having a class in the MARB. I don't remember this one. I don't know if I had any classes there.
You probably didn't. It's like an old building. I feel like it's the physics building mostly.
Did you have classes there?
I had a couple.
What's wrong with it?
It's just old.
Oh.
Yeah. I think
Does it
that's
have
why
a
it's a little.
smell?
I think that's why it's a little potato man.
I think they're just random.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like right in the middle, which is cool. But yeah, it's just old.
Walking on campus before they clear the ice.
You gotta watch out.
Yeah, you just don't go. Like, what is more embarrassing than like walking into your class and like slipping and falling on the ice? I could never recover.
See, my freshman year, I had a religion class with several people in my hall, and so we all went in the morning, and coming up from the dorms, you have that like huge like slope up the ramp and everything, and so we finally make it up all this ice and get to the classroom, and then the board just says class is canceled. And then we find out after the fact, so basically our religion professor, the reason he canceled class was because he said there's so many old ladies on his street that were all snowed in that he stayed home to be able to dig them out. And I was like, dang, bro, I thought he just wasn't feeling it, but no, he literally, I don't know if he came in or like his TA did or what, who wrote it on the board.
Yeah.
Maybe this dude literally came in, wrote on the board, and then went back to help the old ladies out. But either way, somebody wrote it up there, and that's what this dude was doing all morning, was just shoveling out old ladies, putting their ice melt down so that they wouldn't be tripping on their stairs.
That is so sweet.
That's wild.
I love that. Crossing the street. Yeah. That one is literal. I mean, unless you're walking, with the whole mob of people all crossing together, it's like that could be your last day on earth.
Also, nobody likes crosswalks and everything. They just go for it.
It's
and then
true.
The people driving are mad at everybody not using crosswalks and going for it, so they're not trying to wait for anybody. Mm-hmm. It's treacherous.
Did you know that's a Taylor Swift song?
Treacherous?
Yeah.
No.
Now you know.
Because I'm not a fan.
Last, becoming a BYU football fan.
Ooh.
That
Burn.
one cuts deep. Not for me, really, because I went to BYU. I graduated from there, but I used to go to the U. So I went to every football game. I loved the Utes. And then I transferred to BYU, and I'm like, is it worth it? And it wasn't. I didn't go to any BYU football games. It's just I couldn't take it. Coming from the U to BYU.
But if you didn't even go to one, then how would you know if it was worth it or not?
Because I saw the scores, I saw what happened.
I went to a couple games and it was fun, but
you only went to a couple?
I wasn't super. I mean, I'm not that into football, so I just go with friends or whatever.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was cool enough, but I don't want to pay for it. So.
Yeah. I mean, I'd go now. It's fun vibes. Get a cougar tail.
There you go.
Makes it worth it.
All right. So without any further ado, we will now just cut right over to our interview with Matt and Katie, talking about their experience with overcoming pornography and how that relates to all of us.
So it seems like outside of the church, there are obviously some people who think porn is actually not bad. And the church's stance is that it is bad. So I'm just wondering your take on that. Do you have research maybe that could back up, or just from your experiences? And I'm just curious if you think, if you both weren't members of the church or raised in the church, if you would have felt differently about porn use in your relationship.
Yeah, that's a great way of asking the question, just because a lot of times we ask in the context of the church, and I think it's important to recognize what the world sees as well. I think that pornography is unquestionably wrong and bad. And I think that as a member of the church and as a disciple of Jesus Christ, and also just as a human, and Fight the New Drug is a great resource if people aren't aware of it. I know it's really big right now. People are a lot of people know about it, but they give a lot of information on this subject. I would say that pornography is bad and wrong for several reasons. It promotes lying. That is just so hard. Whether you're in a relationship where it's religious or not, people are going to lie about their porn use on both sides. And I think that's super dangerous, especially in the context of marriage, where you have to build trust. You have to have that relationship of complete and total honesty. I think pornography is generally unethical, even if you're there's ethical porn and stuff like that. It's just super hard to find. It's just not ethical, and for a lot of reasons, but it's also connected with sex trafficking and human trafficking so closely, and that is so dangerous. Any of the podcasts that Fight the New Drug puts out, they talk about that all the time, and it's really hard to hear. And yeah, that would really deter me from looking at it. And then marriages show higher satisfaction rates when pornography is not in the mix. And to say differently, marriages have higher dissatisfaction rates when one or both spouses view pornography. And then pornography is also used as a coping mechanism for people to deal with emotions and things, and to escape reality. And that just promotes unhealthy habits. And in a lot of cases like addiction and stuff like that can go and snowball. So it's my thoughts.
And then I also think like in context of the church and like in like our religion and what we live as the gospel, we're told that if you view pornography or if you are acting out inappropriately, then that takes you further away from the Spirit. It takes you further away from God and your relationship with Him. It also might lead you to breaking covenants that you make, So also in religious context, that does have a lot of negative effects as well.
And like I can personally speak to that of in a spiritual sense, when I view pornography, when I act out like that, I lose the Spirit and I lose that closeness with Heavenly Father. And there's just always a cognitive dissonance. Like no matter how much I rationalize or excuse like my actions, there's always that and just the distance from Heavenly Father. So I think that's a big reason too. So.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, pornography, bad.
Very harmful.
Yes.
But we also established that it's around us. It's everywhere. So Matt, I would love to hear what your advice would be for a member of the church listening who is in it and they're struggling and they need to know what their next step should be.
They're hiding it from their spouse or their parents or friends around them, and they feel like there's no good way out.
Yeah, this is so hard because so many of us are in this situation, and with just so much shame around it, it's really hard to break out of that. And so I think that like there's three things I would say. I'd say first, people need to recognize that they are not alone, both because other people are struggling. I struggled for so many years. I know so many people who are struggling. And because there's people who are willing to help them, whether it's their parents, their family, their spouse, bishop, other leaders. So many people are out there willing to help. I think the second thing that I would tell them is reach out to someone. And if it's like scary, if you don't want to reach out to your spouse or your bishop or something, reach out to like someone distant from like Katie and I on like Instagram. We would love to like hear from people if they like, we have so many people just like reach out to us and be like, I've just been struggling in silence for so long. Thank you. And that's awesome. Just get out of yourself. And then I think the third thing I would say is to start some sort of like a program. I did like the church's 12-step program. And you don't have to just choose one, and it doesn't need to be the church's program, but do something where you can follow it and have access to like the community that it brings and like the knowledge that it brings and just like the added measure of like help on your journey of recovery. So.
Awesome. I love that. And Katie, what would your advice be for someone whose spouse or partner is struggling as far as being a support person goes?
I love that. Something that I would say is so often, in my experience and with the women that I've worked with, so often women will focus so much on their spouse. They'll try to be like their accountability partner. They'll try to get them into therapy. They'll push them to go to meetings. And it almost just becomes this huge burden on these women to almost control their spouse because they care about it so much. It's something that's so painful and so hurtful for these women who are going through this. And so in their mind and in my mind, I'm like, okay, I got to get him to do all these things so he'll stop looking at pornography and so I can feel better. And so we can kind of go back to our normal marriage and I can go back to feeling great in our marriage. But that actually can be really harmful by focusing so much on the spouse or on your marriage. And a lot of women don't focus on themselves and they don't give themselves the love and the healing that they deserve, because it is really like I talk about betrayal trauma. A lot of women don't even know what betrayal trauma is, but it's those symptoms of like feeling anxious or feeling controlling or feeling sad or depressed or having nightmares. Like there's just so many symptoms, and a lot of them mirror PTSD symptoms. So it can be like a really serious thing that these women are going through. But so much of the time they just push their feelings down and focus on their spouse. And so something that is really important for these women is to find healing for themselves by reaching out to someone that they trust, someone outside of their marriage, and by getting the help and the support that they need, and also spending time focusing on their own feelings, processing their feelings, maybe going to therapy for themselves, doing a support meeting. Like I offer support meetings like on my Instagram page, and the church also offers support meetings. And that was one of the best things I could do, is finding a community of women who were also going through the same thing. So I didn't feel alone, and I stopped feeling ashamed about what I was going through and about what Matt was going through.
That's great.
That's amazing. I've never thought about it through that lens of it affects the spouse or the partner almost just as much, right? It's you're equals in a relationship and really focusing on yourself and getting yourself the help that you need to. That's amazing. And it's amazing. I have so much respect for you guys talking about this and allowing people to reach out to you. So thank you for what you do. You guys are seriously awesome. And I want to ask too, since on this podcast, we talk a lot about church culture and what we can do to improve it. I feel like pornography, we touched on this a little bit, but it's like this big looming, scary thing that is brought up a lot, but not really in a lot of detail. It's very much a taboo in church culture. Do you have any opinions or things that you think members could do of the church to kind of destigmatize pornography and pornography addiction?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think just understanding first and foremost that so many people struggle with it. I mean, like anywhere from like 60% to 90% of men are like dealing with it or have dealt with it in some capacity. And I know that number's equally high for women. And so it's important to recognize that people are dealing with this. People young, like we talked about, 11 years, 10 years, are dealing with this. And so recognizing that people are dealing with it, I think that's really important. And then we heard something really interesting the other day from actually like a BYU professor. And he said that if someone were to get up in church and in testimony meeting and talk about like a meth addiction, it would be like more acceptable to like the congregation than someone getting up and talking about like a porn addiction. People, if someone got up and talked about that, they'd be like, don't let them teach my kids and like stuff like that.
Stay away from that gross weirdo. But the meth guy, you'd be like, good job, man, you're doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's like, overcome it. Yep. Yeah. And so it's really important to recognize that we're normal people and that we can, be forgiven and move on and move forward, and destigmatizing it like that, I think, is important.
It's been so interesting. So his calling, so he has two callings actually. So executive secretary, and then his other calling, he just got called as like the stake 12-step addiction recovery group leader.
Wow.
And so what we've been doing is we've been going around to all the different wards in the stake, and we've been like sharing our message and talking to people about it, giving them resources. So it's been interesting doing that, starting our Instagram page. And I feel like I knew there was a lot of stigma around these topics, but once we've been like doing this and really digging into it more, we're still so surprised with just like how awkward it is for people when we talk about these things. And like, we've just had so many awkward conversations when people are like, oh, why are you here? What are you doing? Or like, what message do you have? Or people on Instagram are just like, I would share, but like, I don't want anyone to know that like we deal with this, or like, I don't want anyone to think that like we have a tie to you guys or something like that, you know, which I understand, but like, it is just so deep and there's so much shame around it. And so I feel like just the more we can talk about it, and that's why, that's why we have just appreciated you and your platform so much, because you've just been so open. Like from the very beginning, you were just like, hey, Matt and Katie, I'd love to do like a collaboration with you, and it means so much to us because there aren't a lot of people who are willing to do that because it is really taboo and really stigmatized.
Oh, you guys are so kind. No, I really have so much respect for what you do and the message that you're sharing. It takes a lot of courage. I can't imagine like the awkward scenarios that do you have any like funny stories that you could share with us?
Not like disturbingly awkward or like painful awkward, but like funny awkward.
Well, it was funny just like, even just the other day, like yesterday we went to this ward and it was kind of like an older gentleman, so it makes sense, but he was like super friendly and like chatting with us, and he's like, wait, so why are you guys here? Like what message do you have from the stake? And we're like, addiction recovery and like pornography recovery, and he was just like, oh, I kind of just like walked away. Literally just walked away. And we were like, there's no better way to end a conversation than to tell someone, like bringing up like what we do, And it was so funny. Like Matt was traveling last month and he was editing like one of our podcasts or reels or something. And this guy was like, oh, you have a podcast? And I don't think they were like members of the church, but he's like, what's your podcast about? And Matt's like, quitting porn. And he's just like, oh, just like looks away, literally just like end of conversation. So like that happens to us all the time. And a lot of people just don't really see the need for it, especially on the women's side, like the betrayal trauma side. A lot of people, like, no one ever really talks about that. So it almost, sometimes we shy away from talking about it because it is kind of awkward sometimes or uncomfortable, you know?
Absolutely. No, just attest so much to what you guys do is amazing. And I haven't seen anyone else like being so open with their story. So props to you guys. Thank you for what you do.
Thanks.
I did have, one other question, then we'll get into our little advice segment. But I've heard this is sometimes not a controversial thing, but calling it pornography addiction versus just pornography use. I don't know if pornography, some people may argue that it's harmful or it makes it seem worse than it is if you're just a casual viewer. I just want to hear your takes on if we should be calling it a pornography addiction.
Yeah, this one does get a lot of heat online, and so I think that we focus too much on like what we call it. But like we mentioned earlier, pornography use is definitely on a spectrum. And on one side, you've got addiction, you know, and that's going to be like kind of a smallish subset of people. On the other side, like no problem with it. And I think the hard part is that a lot of us are somewhere in the middle in this stage that we kind of call like problematic or unwanted porn use, where you can't really stop, but it's not like every minute of every day. And like, you're not like selling your house to like buy pornography and like other things. But like you still have a problem. And I think where the problems that I see come in are people are either call it an addiction and then like rationalize and make an excuse like, I can't fix it because like there's nothing that I can do. But I think that almost the bigger problem that I see is on the other end when people, they don't call it an addiction, and probably rightfully so, but then they also don't call it a problem and don't get help. So the people who are seeing it like once a week or once a month, they need to like go get help and get the resources that they need, because like we've established, pornography is damaging, and even if they don't recognize just how damaging it is, like they'll never be able to live like that potential that they have. And that's like where I was at. Like, was it like a clinical addiction for me or not? Like, I don't know, but I use the 12-step program that the church offers where we call ourselves addicts. And I felt empowered by that because it was me saying that like, I need God's help and I need help from other people. And so I think whatever we call it, the important thing is that we treat it seriously and we go get help.
There you go.
That's great. Thank you so much. That's an awesome answer. And do you want to read our little advice segment?
Sure.
So just to preface, we found this scenario on thirdhour.org. There are forums and someone was asking this advice, and we thought we had the perfect people to tackle this little thing with, tackle this scenario with.
Great. Yeah. So this person, I'll just kind of read the little backstory, little question, then you guys can jump right into it. So they said, I've been dating a wonderful guy for about 6 months. I knew up front that he had a pornography addiction that had started at a very young age and has had a massive impact on his life. Pornography addiction is, at the core, a dopamine addiction, I know. He hadn't been temple worthy for quite some time and wasn't when we started dating. He finally was able to stop regular pornography use and go back to the temple recently. He's always been honest with me in every aspect regarding his addiction. He wants to marry me, but he's waiting and respectful of my decision. Part of me really wants to get married, but I think I need to wait until he's been clean longer. How long should he be clean before I consider discussing marriage again and possibly getting engaged? Any general advice?
That's a good question. And one, we get similar questions a lot, especially people who are dating or engaged or something. And it is tricky. Sorry, I'm trying to catch my breath. It is tricky because this is a topic that affects so many people, but I feel like a lot of women, young single adult women in the church, don't understand pornography use and like what's at the root, what's realistic with pornography use. And so there's not a lot of education there. So it's hard for them to make educated decisions about getting engaged or about getting married. And it's not their fault, right? Again, it's just like there's so much shame around this. So I think there needs to be a lot more education. But to this young woman, I would say that it's really likely that if he has been struggling for years and years, kind of like she was making it seem, that this is not going to be a problem that's going to go away like that. And it's amazing that he's been making these changes. He's being open. Like that's a huge thing for him to be open, for him to be getting temple worthy. And it seems like he's really putting forth some changes and trying to be trustworthy. but that is probably not going to, like his porn use and being sober however many days, that's probably not going to last for the rest of his life. And then so to say, like, how long does he need to be sober for me to consider getting engaged? That's not a realistic expectation to have, in my opinion, because the soberness doesn't necessarily matter. It's more about his outward actions of like, is he being honest with you? Is he being honest with the bishop? Is he willing to change? Is he willing to go to programs? Things like that. Those are the things that you want to look at, and not just how sober a person is going to be. Because there are a lot of men who say like, I'm sober. I haven't looked at pornography for this many days, but they're not in true recovery. There's a difference between sobriety and recovery. And these men who have been sober for however many days, they might still be lying, or they might be using something else instead to numb their feelings, so that's not a really good indication. So it's really helpful to look at these other surrounding things and kind of see where he's at in his actual recovery instead of his sobriety, if that makes sense.
I would just add on to that by saying true like healing and recovery is possible. Like the Savior can heal this man, and he can heal every man and woman. And it will be a journey. It will be a lifelong journey. And it is important, like Katie said, for this sister to like educate herself and understand what her like future spouse is going through, but also recognize that the reality is that so many men deal with this, and like he is probably going to have to put in a lot of work to overcome this. But recovery and healing is possible, and they just need to learn how to like trust each other, work together, and find like that faith in God to move forward.
And it's likely if she were to date somebody else, you'd probably have some other kind of problem where he's trying to numb his feelings. Like we all have these things, and it's not necessarily an addiction, and pornography use is serious and can be really serious. But there are so many weaknesses that people have to kind of cope with life. And so to say like, oh, I need someone who has like these qualifications around pornography, it's not like a really good indicator of that, who that person is.
Absolutely. That's amazing advice. Thank you so much. And I love just your message of hope, because I look at you two, and at least from my point of view, like it looks like you guys have such a beautiful relationship, and you guys are such amazing people. And I think if anything, if to anyone watching this struggling, it's like there is hope. Look at these guys. Like you guys are great. And you mentioned education. I was wondering if besides your page, of course, what resources could you refer people to?
Yeah, like you mentioned, our page, that's like everything that we're trying to do. And we have some resources about that too, like webinars and some different things. So people can check out our page for that. The church has like a lot of great resources in like gospel library. If you go to, there's a section called self-help. And within there's resources about addiction, about pornography. And within those, there's like subsets for like spouses, for like parents, for people who are struggling themselves. So that's like a great starting place as well.
Do you guys give the church's resources a thumbs up? They're not like outdated or vague, like they're good?
Yeah, a lot of them are like have been updated very recently, and like they are, I would say they're like a really great like Christ-centered starting place, and you can always like branch out from there. And the church also has a resource called like the Spouse and Family Support Guide. And it's in that place that I just said, Life Help and everything, that kind of mirrors the 12-step manual for spouses. And so that's a great resource, especially when you're in like a relationship already.
And a lot of people will kind of maybe like diss or like think less highly of the church resource. And it's not like the end all be all, but the thing with the church resources is they are free. So anyone can get help that they need. But some people, like you don't invest in them the way that you would invest like in a therapist or a life coach or a program or something like that. So a lot of people go to the church's meetings or work through the manual and then just stop going. So it's not that the church's resource is necessarily unhelpful. It is helpful if you're willing to put in the work and the time, and you're going to be like dedicated to it, and committed to it. Because we've seen so much growth, and we know so many people who have changed from it. But a lot of therapists or official people, will say, oh, the church's resource isn't helpful. But we believe it's just because a lot of people don't stick with it for that reason.
Yeah, on my mission, actually, I got to be involved a little bit with the church's 12-step program. It's just funny. One of my areas, like the elders just kind of went and they just attended all the time. We had several people
cool.
we were working with teaching that also went. And I think that's how it all started. So it's kind of cool to be able to see that from an outside perspective, and just be able to see the program, because I thought it was awesome. Because even just as a missionary, it was cool where like I wasn't struggling with addiction or anything, but the lessons being taught were just really powerful, spiritual, encouraging me to grow and develop as a person. And I was like, well, this is good stuff, like even just trying to improve. So it's kind of cool. Like, I think even for people that wouldn't say that they're struggling with an addiction, pornography, whatever it is, it could be anything that, if you're just trying to change your life for the better, check it out, because it's a really cool program that, helps people just learn, say, hey, I'm here and I want to get here and God's going to help me do it. And, I think it's cool just for that.
Yeah, as like a leader and like member in the church, people should go to a meeting. They're really easy to find. You go to addictionrecovery.churchofjesuschrist.org. You can type in your zip code, totally find a meeting, or go to an online meeting. There's just nothing like experiencing that in real life. So,
Yeah.
So cool. I'm on my way. I want to go to one now. I'm really,
You should.
you guys sold
you
it.
great.
Do you have anything else that you want to share with our audience? Any last parting words, I guess?
Go for it.
I would just say we've kind of touched on this, but there is hope. If this is something that you're struggling with, it's not, like you kind of mentioned, like Matt and I have a really good relationship. We're in a really great place right now in our marriage. There's so much trust and unity and love for each other, but it hasn't always been like that. Like, we really struggled for years and years to get to a good place, and we're still not perfect. It's not going to come overnight. Like, your healing and your change and your marital healing is not going to come but with like a quick fix by going to one meeting or by listening to one podcast or something. It's going to take years. And a lot of people will kind of message us and say like, well, we've been going to the temple, we've been reading our scriptures, or we've been doing these things for a couple months. Like, why aren't things better yet? And I think there's kind of a misconception that like, if you're doing the things, it should get better pretty quickly, but in our experience and working with a lot of couples, it usually takes years, not just months. And so that's something to really remember as you're going through this, not to get down on yourself and continue to push, turn towards Jesus Christ and turn towards each other. And you'll be able to find that hope and that healing if you just keep staying consistent and using Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ in your healing journey.
Amazing.
Oh.
Matt, anything from you?
Yeah, I have found so much healing and hope from Jesus Christ, and sometimes it doesn't feel like that on the journey. Sometimes you feel distant from the Savior. I felt distant from the Savior in my journey of healing. Sometimes it felt like I was being a taskmaster, working through the 12 steps or doing like all these like things that were tasks on the way there. But looking back on it, that journey took my greatest weakness and made it my greatest strength now. One of my greatest strengths, where I can connect with men and help them. And I also have learned how to manage my emotions, my feelings, difficult things in life, and how to repent and move forward. And the Savior will take whatever weakness you have, whether it's pornography or something else, and he can make it an amazing strength if you give it to him, if you include the Savior in your life. And like we mentioned, like the 12-step program is an amazing resource, and it teaches you how to do that. And so I have a firm testimony of Jesus Christ and his power to heal and strengthen and redeem and restore us. And so I just want everyone to know that.
Thank you so much for sharing that. What a beautiful testimony. And there is hope. Like, you guys, it's just such a great message. I can't wait for this to get out and people to watch it. And okay, where can people find you after this? Tell us about your Instagram, your webinars. What are you offering? Tell us everything.
Yeah, we have an Instagram account, like we said, it's called Upward, Inward, Outward. And the thought behind that is you reach upward to like heaven for like strength, fix yourself inward, and then like reach outward for like help and also just connection, things like that. So that's our process of healing. And we do an Instagram account where Katie talks about the spouses of those who are struggling with pornography use and like how they can heal and find healing. And I talk about men and how they can quit porn and just become their best selves. We have a lot of free resources for like YSA, for youth, for families. We have resources for like couples. And then we've got like a webinar that we just did about rebuilding trust after it's been broken in a marriage affected by pornography use. And then Katie also has a course for women who are dealing with betrayal trauma and everything with that. It's an amazing course. So they can check out our Instagram for all of that information.
Nice. And I know as we've been talking, obviously we've kind of focused a lot on men with an issue and women, dealing with the man's issue. But I think it's important just to really clarify and understand that, all of us understand that women also struggle, just as much as men do with pornography use themselves. It could be the husband then that's, coping with betrayal trauma and these kind of things. Obviously, we just kind of focused on the husband in this case because that's kind of your guys' situation. Yeah. But, for everybody listening or watching, this could be husband or spouse, could be kids, could be, whatever situation you're in. I hope we didn't, make you feel like this doesn't apply to you because you're not a man and a spouse or a husband only, but we recognize that, anybody could be in this kind of situation, at any point in their journey that, they've just barely started their pornography use and realize they've just stepped into something they shouldn't have. People have been, struggling with pornography for years and feel like they can't get better or, whatever it is. So we just hope that, anybody in this situation realizes that, you can get help, you have resources there, and there's hope for you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, love that.
Thank you guys again so much for being here for this conversation and sharing your story. What you do is so important and takes so much courage. And I know from our previous collaborations we've done that Heavenly Father is working through you to reach his children. So just thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. It was so great to be here with you guys. Thanks for having us on.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Third Hour podcast. We really hope that you enjoyed it and it was valuable to you. Please be sure to subscribe wherever you are listening to this podcast or watching it, and follow us on Instagram at third.hour. You can also send us anything you want us to react to, any topics you want us to discuss, or if you need any advice, feel free to shoot us a direct message on Instagram or email us at podcast@thirdhour.org. Eric, any final words?
Thanks for joining us. Have a great day, night, weekend, whatever it is.
Okay, see you guys.